Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Open for Business Subcommittee meeting. Today is Thursday, March the 6th, and we are in room 264. We have quorum present for today's meeting, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. And just a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function. So it's going to be the Tammy and Maureen show today. So may I please have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as presented? Oh, I think I see Councillor Maureen Wilson moving. I will second. Any discussion on said agenda? No. Okay. All right. And so vote of show of hands. This is going to be a day, I think. Councillor Craig Cassar is representing us at the Smart 21 conference, so unfortunately he's not able to make it. So like I said, today is going to be the Maureen and Tammy show. It's going to be awesome and fun. Thank you to those that are in the room today. We have Kyle Sloat from the Hamilton Burlington Architects. We have Drino Mazik from the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. And online, we have Nadine Ubel from the Barton Village Business Improvement Area. And I think that's it. Yes. Yes, I think that's it. So thank you to our advisors for being in the room today. I think we have a pretty fun agenda moving forward. So we're going to go on to declarations of interest. Maureen, do you have any declarations of interest? Zero. Okay. We are moving on to approval of minutes from the previous meeting. I think Councillor Wilson will move and I will second. Any discussion on said adoption of those minutes? None? Show of hands? Cool, we're good to go. All right. First item, which is really the meat and potatoes of this show, is 7.1, the PEG 25079, Open for Business 2024 Annual Update. And this is from Jen Hohal. Actually, but I do see that GM Steve Robichaud is in the room. Did you want to say any? No. Director Lawley, who used to be the Director of Strategic, but is now the current Chief Building Officer. Did you want to say anything?
I don't want to say that. Rob Lally, Director of Building, Chief Building Official. No, this is fantastic that we get to return to preparing our PED annual update at the Open for Business Subcommittee. Most of these metrics used to be shown previous years at budget time through the budget cycle. These are all the metrics and KPIs of the department. Due to the new budget format, the metrics and KPIs have been removed. So we're lucky that we get to have these here at committee.
Thank you very much, CBO Rob Lally. So we're going to ask Manager Jen Hohal. It's your show, so super excited to have you here. Please, anytime you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jen Hohal, Manager of Strategy and Continuous Improvement in the Planning and Economic Development Department. So as Rob said, I'm here to present you the 2024 annual update. And what the annual update has been is a commitment to our subcommittee, Open for Business subcommittee, to provide some data on the previous year, show our key performance indicators, and talk a little bit about some of the Open for Business initiatives in 2025. So I'm going to jump right into the highlights section and start looking at some of our data. We're going to start with our construction value. If you take a look at the heat map on your screen, you'll see what you sort of expect, a focus of construction in our downtown core with that blue circle there. In 2024, we had approximately $1.5 billion worth of construction. That is down from 2023. However, when we look at some of the 10-year trend there in the data, it's still one of the top 4 highest construction years that we've had. If we look at a little bit more of construction value by type, this will start to be a trend in the presentation, but a little bit of a downward trend in construction values for both residential and non-residential development, and we'll go through that a little more in detail in the next few slides as well. If we look at it from the development application perspective, in 2024, again, we saw a decrease in the number of development applications coming in, consistent with our construction values as well, partly due to economic climate that we've all been experiencing over the last year. Also, there's been some decrease due to some proactive zoning and review of our official plans, which also could eliminate the need for some of these planning applications that were captured in this data. So a couple different reasons why we see the data numbers going down year over year. Oh, sorry. Speak into the mic a little more. So construction values, but also some work that's been done on proactive zoning, as well as review of our official plans, and we can have our planning staff answer more questions on that as we move forward, absolutely. So in terms of looking at some more of the non-residential, or sorry, the residential construction or development here, In 2024, there was just under 2,000 units created. So again, that decrease from 2023. What's also interesting in some of this data over the past few years, we have seen more of a focus in development of multi-residential and apartments. As we move into the 2024 data, we see about a 50-50 split between the multi-residential and apartments and our single-family units. We did also want to include this year some information on additional dwelling units. So you'll see about 350 ADUs developed this year. That includes both conversions and new construction. Again, down from 2023, but still above that 5-year average when we're looking at trends across our historical data. It's a very busy slide, but I'll talk everyone through it. Basically, I want to summarize a little bit about about residential construction or development. Hamilton is not alone in what we're seeing in the numbers. This data is from our Ontario Housing Tracker. So as most of you know, we have many municipalities have housing targets set by the province and the municipalities. Hamilton's 2024 housing target was just under 4,000 units. And as you heard me mention earlier, we had developed just under 2,000. So we are not able to meet our 2024 target, but that's similar to most municipalities. And you can see that by the data here. That straight red line across the 100% there is showing the 100% targets. And that squiggly orange line that's going down across the graph, what that's showing is how far the municipalities are from meeting their targets. So where those two lines, the orange and the red, intersect, everyone to the left met their target, so that's about 6 municipalities. Everyone to the right is likely not to meet their housing targets in 2024. So I want to flip over a bit to non-residential construction. In 2024, we had about 1.15 million square feet of non-residential development. In our Economic Development Action Plan for 2021 to 2025, there was an ambitious stretch goal there of adding 7 million square feet of non-residential development. And with about 1.5 million expected for 2025, we are very likely to hit that ambitious stretch goal. Wanted to continue on with a non-residential development. This shows office vacancy rates. You'll see there's a very slight increase in terms of office vacancy over the past few years, especially since COVID. There is an asterisk in 2024. There was some work that our economic development team has done to recalculate this number to better reflect vacancy rates. So it looks like a large jump between 2023 and 2024, but we're not exactly comparing apples to apples there. It wasn't, it's just the way that it's being calculated. So we're happy to answer some more questions on that if needed. I did want to highlight the Hamilton Business Center here as well. I know we were lucky enough to have their staff come out to several of our meetings last year and give updates on their programs and their work. As part of their work last year in 2024, they supported over 14,000 inquiries, 1,300 one-on-one business consultations, and many more programs than I can mention in my 10-minute time limit here today. So, but if you do have a chance, if you haven't gone downstairs and checked out our Common House Cafe, it's a really great food entrepreneur initiative supported by the Hamilton Business Center. So we encourage you to do that while you're here today. We also wanted to share a little bit about visitors to our city and their economic impact as well. We have had an increase in the number of visitors coming to our downtown visitor center at the Lister Block. We saw almost over 7,000 visitors come through. There's been programming last year supporting major events like the April eclipse that happened and our RBC Canadian Open that was hosted and Supercrawl. So a great way to bring people into our downtown core, but then encourage them to explore Hamilton as well. And also in terms of tourism and visitors, looking at our total citywide hotel stays, the 2024 data is coming back to pre-COVID levels. In 2022 and 2023, you'll see there the stays are quite high. That does include the use of hotels for our shelter spaces. So in 2024, the data is starting to reflect visitors to our city and support of tourism. So that was a very quick run through of highlights in 2024. I am going to show a few of our key performance indicators. As Rob mentioned, you may not see quite as many of the indicators as you're used to seeing this year. Due to the cybersecurity incident, we're still building back our database and ability to report on key performance indicators. So we'll continue to do that as we move forward and provide better reporting. We did want to highlight a few items today. So the first one is around Bill 109 timelines. So in terms of the planning applications that are subject to Bill 109 timelines, we have met all of those provincial requirements for 2024. We also did want to highlight the average number of days to hearing and minor variance and consent application. I think this was an important one for our teams this year. You'll see in 2020 there's some cross-hatching there. That was the impact of COVID and the time it took to adjust and change the way we delivered those meetings. With the cybersecurity incident in 2024, you'll see there's very little to no impact on the time it took to get a hearing and or minus variance or consent meeting, and that was due to the excellent work of our staff and being able to do manual processes and book more meetings so that our customers weren't feeling the impact of that. And just wanted to highlight this key performance indicator more to show how we're looking at some of our processes. So this looks at engineering submissions for site plan and subdivisions. So we're trying not only to measure our processes across start to finish, but we're also trying to look at pieces of the process and looking at data to determine how we can best improve along the continuum of the process and see how that impacts the bigger picture as well. So just an idea of the type of data we're trying to work with and collect in our department. So I'm just going to finish up by touching on our 2025 Open for Business priorities and what you might expect to see coming through to this subcommittee in the future meetings. We do want to focus on our customer service enhancements. So I know there's some work being done on public notification and public signage according to the Planning Act. Expansion of digital services. I mentioned that we are rebuilding some of our digital platforms, so not only in supporting staff in how they process applications and how they report on applications, but also creating customer service portals, so it's easier to submit applications digitally. And then also process reviews. There was quite a large project done over the past in 2024 through the Bloomberg Harvard Innovation Track program. There was a cross-functional team from departments across the city that looked at reviewing the development application process and coming up with opportunities for improvement. And I know some people around this table were engaged in that process and gave feedback for improvements. So it would be really exciting to bring that work forward to this table as well in the future. So that was my very quick overview of what we did in 2024 and where we're going in 2025 in alignment with the Open for Business Subcommittee mandate. You'll see we have a number of staff here that are happy to answer questions, and so I'll pause there.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Manager Hohol. First up is Councillor Maureen Wilson, but also, hi, welcome, Brenda. Good to see you. So for our advisors, and I do see that Nadine is also online, so if you guys could just, I'm going to look down the line, so if you want to raise your hand, and then Nadine, if you want to just put up the virtual hand and we can get to you there. And also Sal will also keep us in line. So Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, my thanks to all staff members who had a hand in this presentation and to the presenter herself. I want to premise trying to frame the rationale behind my questions in the following way. I think it will be of critical importance for this municipality to be able to track with as much detail as possible building activity by type and by location in the event that we do get into a protracted tariff period, that we can accurately track the impact of that longitudinally. And so when we have a clear and stated methodology to do so, I think that will be very enlightening for us. My other reason for asking the questions is to ensure I'm fully understanding as a member of City Council as a whole what the activity means for, I think, what should be prioritized in terms of our amenity investments and infrastructure investments generally. And my final thrust behind my questions has to do with trying to understand better the general slowdown, which is revealed in your presentation, and what responsibilities and opportunities this municipality has within its grasp, within its means, to try and address that, including the issue of time, and time always being money. So thank you. I just wanted to frame those questions. So my first question is trying to understand the heat map at the opening part of your presentation. Do we have the capacity to understand, to kind of overlay the activity which is on this with the type of activity, meaning the type of construction, the location of investment, and do we have, because I think that will inform us of infrastructure needs immediately or consequentially. Through the chair.
So through the chair, I can start, and then we'll see if Rob wants to add. The short answer is yes, we can identify building by type. If we looked at some of the subtypes that we typically use, in the presentation, it was by multi-residential, apartment, single, semi, stacked. So we can collect a number of units, building permits, and typically by ward or different geographical distinctions.
Yeah, thanks, Jen, and Rob Lally, Director of Building. Just to elaborate on that, and just nobody actually here from the GIS team that actually built this heat map, from my understanding of having built these heat maps in the past. So this information is taken based on our ward data, based on the type of application, as Jen has already mentioned. So we would know how many residential, commercial, industrial units there are in a certain area, and those are put into this software that creates that blob. And depending on the intensity of that blob, that's what changes the color. So if you're saying that this is supposed to be just a graphical representation, but we could also provide a table or spreadsheet that would indicate the number of applications per type per ward, which makes up this blob.
Thank you. If I've understood the answer, you have the data. You're able to reproduce that for us on a, to align the type of activity with the location. That information next time might inform us in asking, or at least prompt us to ask questions about, is there a competitive advantage, or what is the perceived advantage of locating and building in that particular area? What is the responsibility of the municipality and the opportunity to try and accelerate and build upon that advantage? So you'll be able to bring that back? Thank you.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. My next question then is, I wasn't clear on the comment that you made in reference to application activity. I thought you made a comment about your zoning work. Could you elaborate on that a bit through the chair?
Yeah, I might go through the chair. I might ask Sean or Steve to elaborate on that, if possible. Want me to start?
Sure.
So I think it's about telling the story of the data that there's lots that goes into what you're seeing in a bar chart, right? There's a lot that makes up the story. So just because something is going decreasing, it's not fully based on one factor. So we have to take into consideration some of the multiple factors that are happening there. So one could be the economy that's driving that, but there are some other practices potentially in planning or in the planning division that could be influencing those numbers one way or the other. And I think I see Steve's mic on.
So, yeah, thank you,
with that.
Chairman. The timing of this presentation is very good because the Canadian Home Builders just released their benchmarking study, and it showed, and based on their study, Hamilton is performing very poorly. What their study doesn't reflect is the information that was presented on slide 16. In Ontario, there's a pre and post Bill 109 world. Applications received after Bill 109, that was the one that imposed the mandatory fee refunds, which was subsequently rescinded by council. We re-engineered all of our planning approvals processes to meet those provincial targets. And as indicated, we were meeting or exceeding those provincial targets in terms of getting reports to planning committee and council for a timely decision, almost 100%. There was one application that did not meet that marker because of the cyber incident, and the committee or council meeting was delayed, so it went beyond the targeted date. What slide 18 shows, though, is almost the pre-Bill 109 world, where the city standards were fairly low in terms of what information was required to be submitted, and we would see applicants putting applications in that would go through multiple revisions and resubmissions and et cetera, where we were dependent on the applicant to provide the necessary information so that we could complete our review and bring those applications forward to planning committee for a decision. And that is tracked by staff, and that was the used to be monthly and now it's quarterly, is the status of development applications that are beyond the 90 or 120 day for the sake of an appeal. So very often we will have applications that come in our opinion, they're premature because there's no servicing available or the applicant hasn't completed the work to demonstrate that there are no adverse impacts, and those applications may stay as active files for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. When those applications finally come forward to planning committee, because that application is so old, it distorts the average. The home builders did not take the median, but they took the average. So if all of our applications are being done in 120 days, but then you have one application that comes in that's taken 1,200 days, the average is no longer 120, it suddenly morphs up to like 1,500 or some other number that doesn't really reflect the timely decision-making that's being done at planning committee in terms of dealing with development applications. The second factor is what we're seeing is the work of council to approve updated zoning avoids the need to come in for a zoning application in the first place. So for example, within Eastgate Square, that was pre-zoned to allow that development to occur. Council had to deal with the subdivision, but the principle of the land use was enshrined in the secondary plan and the zoning that was put in place in 2017. Along the LRT corridor, we have done the same thing. It is pre-zoned and therefore you go straight to site plan and building permit. All of our commercial areas, we've updated the zoning, so there's not a need to come in for a rezoning. We're seeing some of the plazas are adding residential. That is being done as of right because they have those permissions and they just go straight to site plan. So it does mean that we're going to be seeing fewer and fewer applications over time as we keep the zoning bylaw current and up to date. We are going to be coming forward with updated medium density residential zoning, which will again eliminate the need for a lot of these development applications we're seeing, unless people decide they want to do more than what council has said they should build at. So that is one of the factors that we will see that sort of is changing our numbers and our dynamics. We do know that, yes, the development industry is in a difficult time right now in terms of adjusting. It was because of the interest rate shock and now of the uncertainty as it relates to what do the tariffs mean. We are still seeing fairly strong on the industrial and the commercial sector. Those people are advancing, but again, they are advancing in accordance with the new zoning that is in place that council adopted 2010, I believe, so that they don't need to come to committee for rezoning before they can put up their warehouse or their factory. So by updating our planning instruments, combined with the council commitment to meet applications within those 120 or 90 days or the 60 days, we have been reducing the approval timelines that's required for applicants and providing a higher degree of certainty. It's going to be difficult to say where the industry is still trying to understand what they can build, what they can take to market. So until some of that dynamic sorts out, I anticipate there will still be a bit of sluggishness in terms of development applications on the residential side. But notwithstanding that, and then the third factor is a lot of people who do have approvals are focusing on completing those approvals, i.e. their site plan or cleaning up their application, as we refer to it, so that they can get their letter of credit back so that they can then refinance new projects on it going forward, as opposed to sort of us initiating new projects. So there's a few dynamics at place, but I think between up-to-date planning instruments combined with council's commitment to process applications in a timely fashion and providing the resources we need, we are seeing that we are able to, in the post-Bill 109 world, meet or exceed those sort of provincial targets and issue timely development approvals. I hope that answers the question. I know that was a lot of information. Thank you.
So thank you. If I could repeat back maybe part of what I thought I've heard, so just to ensure I've understood what I've heard. I'm not aware of the Canadian Home Builders benchmarking study. So I think you started out by saying that in that study, it reveals that the municipality is not performing comparatively.
Correct. We are ranked in the bottom third based in that study.
And then I thought I heard you say that part of perhaps our opportunity resides in modernizing our zoning and our as of rights, particularly along the high order corridor, such that there won't be any delays because the as of rights, and that ultimately will affect our numbers. Is that what you're saying? Through the chair.
Through the chair. That is correct. For example, within the downtown, by pre-zoning the downtown, the applicants don't have the need to go through a rezoning. They go straight to site plan. Right. And then there's other cases, because it's, with the provincial changes on site plan, if it's 10 units or less, they go straight to building permit. But by the city having up-to-date and current zoning, it eliminates the need to go through a planning process or minimizes what planning processes they have to go through and gets them to the building permit stage as fast as possible. By having pre-zoning properties to allow for more flexibility that allows them to go straight to site plan, that doesn't get captured in, for example, that benchmarking study, which focuses on how long does it take to get a zoning application approved. And I'm saying is in many cases, people don't need to go through a rezoning anymore in the city of Hamilton by virtue of council adopting current and up-to-date zoning regulations that increase the as-of-right planning permissions.
Thank you. I think my time is coming up. I do have a number of questions, but before I pass over the baton, I guess what I'm still not clear about is trying to control the how then, is it fair to say then that in a benchmarking study at this point, it's very difficult to assess the legitimacy of the outcome of the benchmarking study because your comparative analysis is not does not account for the same variables. So we don't know if municipality X has high order transit or we don't know whether they are in the process of or have completed or have had for a while a modern as of right zoning regime that facilitates it. I guess, how does the people who publish this, how can we, what is it? Is there anything legitimate in the benchmarking study then? And I'll cede the floor, and if you could put me back on.
The short answer is, unfortunately, we were not provided with like the draft of the study or an opportunity to respond. They simply collected the information, as I understand it, based on, they pulled reports from planning committee agendas, and it didn't factor in Bill 109 and council's position on committing new applications are to be processed in a timely fashion. So that's the legacy files are distorting it. And the second one is, you are correct, that study doesn't look at a more accurate measure would be how long does it take to get a building permit from generation of the idea to redevelop the site. In Hamilton's context, what I'm suggesting is most properties can go site plan building permit, and that can be done in 6 months to a year, depending on the and how quickly the applicant responds. Where in another municipality, you still have to do the rezoning and the site plan and the building permit. They're not giving us any credit for the fact that probably the vast majority of applications right now that in terms of issuance of a building permit are going straight to building permit or site plan and building permit as opposed to requiring a rezoning. It's not a apples to oranges comparison in terms of the planning framework in Hamilton vis-a-vis other municipalities across Canada.
Thank you. Do we have any advisors that'd like to ask some questions? Kyle first, and I did note that Nadine wanted to be on the list, so we'll go to Kyle first. Kyle?
Great. Thanks very much for the presentation and all the information. Sort of similar to what you were just speaking about with that notion of tracking the start to finish line. So when we're speaking to our clients, they're not super interested, well, they are, but in the steps in the process, but they want to know when is that shovel going to be on site. So I'm wondering if there's a way to add that to the list of KPIs so that we can be tracking how many of these different approvals types are needed and sort of stack them all.
Through the chair, great question. So right now in the data we do have the ability to track from the time a planning application comes in to the point of decision. And then we do have the ability, if we're moving to building permit, to track the time from building permit to occupancy or to final inspection. Where right now there's a bit of a gap is in linking the file directly through the process. So we can report in the data we have today on those average times, but looking at a file life cycle is a little bit challenging. However, with the new tools that we're putting in place to replace our previous planning, permitting, and licensing solution, we will be able to do that, which is very exciting for us. So we will definitely be able to provide better metrics. The other thing that is I hopefully exciting for applicants is they will be able, in the customer side of the tool, be able to see the path that their file is taking, as well as some of the steps. So they'll have much more insight into where their file is.
Right. No, that's great to hear that we're sort of headed in that direction. Can I ask one more? Okay. So along the same lines, I really appreciate slide 16 and showing how those overall development and planning approval timelines are coming down. We're exceeding Bill 109, and that's really helpful for us to set reasonable expectations for our clients. Typically, when we've seen this presentation, I think we've seen something similar on the building permit application side. And so I'm just wondering if you have that data or we will have that data, and specifically how the cyber attack might have really impacted that. Anecdotally, I think it probably impacted it quite a bit, but I'm interested to hear your take.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And through the chair, unfortunately, that data is we're not able to present that right now, is that due to the cyber incident, we're not able to track and I believe you're referring to our number of days to first review, not to issuance of the permits, to first review. So the 20-day permit or the 10-day permit. And we've been showing that metric since 2017. Yeah, so we're looking forward to getting back to that, as Jen indicated, with our new permitting tool. When it's in place, we'll be able to track that a lot closer.
Thanks very much. That's all I had.
Nadine, did you have any questions?
I do. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear.
I'm curious specifically about the commercial applications, and I'm wondering if there's it's sort of multi-layered. So I'm wondering if there's a way to break down commercial applications that are tied into the financial incentive programs. And specifically, I'm hearing things like pre-zoning. I'm hoping that could have an impact to eliminate zoning verification requirements and things like that. Coming from the BIAs, and there have been a number of discussions around the process of these incentives and sort of what the touch points are and where some hurdles may be for applicants that are not coming from a development background. And I'm just curious around sort of what those commercial applications look like, and if there's a way that the BIAs can help to support these processes, and in particular the ones around that are tied into the incentive programs, because the feedback we're getting right now is that the incentives are not as incentivizing as they maybe could be.
That's a good question. So I'll look to maybe start off with Norm before you pass it off to the appropriate people.
Sure. Norm Schleihan, Director of Economic Development. The first question I think Nadine that was asking, was it about, are we able to track it? Like we were asking, are we able to track it? Like basically say, okay, Barton Street has so many applications, and is that where you're asking that first question that came out?
Yeah, I think part of it is just that we, as the BIAs, we don't typically know when an application is submitted or either to the incentive program or even a building permit. My first indication that something's happening in a building is when a bin shows up out front. And I really would like to be able to support both the city and the programs that have been built, but also support the businesses and the property owners. But if I don't get looped in, then I'm not able to do that. And yes, are we able to track, whether it be through the CIPs or as simple as providing a list of addresses, that if a submission goes in or an application goes in with an address that's within a BIA, can the BIA be looped in?
So thank you for the clarification. And I think that's just as simple as some communication from our office to you when an application comes in. I think I'm looking over to Judy to see if she can provide some additional.
Sure, thank you. Judy Lamb, Manager, Commercial District Small Business. The one thing I would say about what is public or not is once it's approved, that is a public process because it's taxpayers' dollars. So usually we don't know sometimes whether an application will go right to the end. And so I would say, in order to communicate, let's say with the BI, let you know if perhaps the applicant, and you can clarify for me, my staff, is if they give you permission that you can speak on their behalf and that we're allowed to share with you the information. But I think it would be difficult to, right from the beginning, share information about their application because that is considered confidential until it's approved.
Nadine, did you have any other
No,
feel
I
there's
understand
there's
that.
something that we're trying to unravel here, so.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's possible, and maybe it's as simple or as complicated as going through the process from start to finish and determining how the BIA can best to support both the city and the applicant through the process from beginning to end in whatever way is available. And if there are things that need to be adjusted in order to make it possible for the BIA to be connected, where those points exist. So as an example, through the chair, Judy, I understand what you're saying about, not being public information. Could it be as simple as a question within the application saying, is this property within a BIA and have you been in touch with them?
Yes, through the chair, Nadine, that would be a good suggestion. I think what we're thinking is clarity for both you as a BIA, with your clients that you have in your BIA, also with us, that clarity in terms of every step. And where I see sometimes delays is, yes, they're not aware maybe of all the due diligence that has to be carried out, whether it's zoning, property taxes, violations, that sort of thing. And we would be happy to educate both the BIA and also do a better job with clients to make sure they know every step, because any one of those delays can delay the whole project. And so if they're clear, and I had mentioned that in our application forms, we have checklists, but we could sort of do maybe even a flow chart just to make sure they understand every step. And I think we'd be happy to do that.
Excellent. I think there's an opportunity, and it might feel like there's a little bit of a direction that's going to be provided here. So we are going to get down to motion. So perhaps let's put a pin on this, and then I think that what I've heard is I can probably send a little bit of language over to the clerks and have that be up at the motions section, just so that we can chat and discuss about that later on. So I'm going to ask if there's any other.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, I just wanted to add one point.
Sure.
I heard the comment about zoning verification requirements and for grants and some of the other facade improvement programs. As a result of cyber and the inability of applicants to provide some of that documentation, we did look at our processes and from a risk management perspective and provided some relaxation in order so that we weren't holding up businesses with a bureaucratic requirement that they couldn't fulfill. So I think it's been about 6 months now we've been issuing grants in the absence of some documentation previously provided that they simply cannot or were not able to provide. And I'm not aware of any, we made the judgment call that how best to proceed. And from my perspective, and Judy, it seems to be working and it's meeting the needs of businesses so that we've been able to resume issuing grants and the other financial incentives in a timely fashion, and then the graffiti removal grants as well, because it's important to small businesses. So I think we do listen to our customers. Sometimes it may take a bit of time for us to change our processes, but that was one of the things we heard loud and clear from the BIAs and the small business owners. And we responded and said, yes, we are prepared for an existing business in an existing situation to relax some of those requirements just so that we could flow those grants out. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you for that, GM Robichaud. I'm just going to finish off with Nadine. Any other questions from you at all? Nope.
Not at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Drina, please.
Oh, thank you. A question on picking up on Councillor Wilson's questions around the benchmarking and the legacy data and what was included. Would we then be able to believe that the next report with the change that we've made to the zoning and the official plans, that the performance would be better?
Yes, ideally, but we still do have, I think there's 44 projects of the legacy projects that distort the average. And we will probably follow up with the people who did the survey as well, even though they weren't asking for information, just to reiterate that message. When they first approached the city, it was actually, we were telling them we were in the middle of the cyber incident and our data sets were locked down. We couldn't access that information and we wouldn't be able to participate. So that's why they relied just on the planning committee agenda reports. But I think once we have the opportunity to review that study, we'll probably do a follow-up with them because I know it is generating media interest because I'm being asked by the media as to explain the results from a City of Hamilton perspective and what is the City of Hamilton story. So this presentation is very timely in providing that City of Hamilton response to those media inquiries or other stakeholders. Thank you.
Great, thank you, because it does impact Hamilton's competitiveness when they're looking to invest. So thank you.
There's one other element that I forgot to mention, and Sean Kenney may do it in terms of it. We are investing in using AI technology in terms of not only in terms of building back better in terms of our data in our permit tracking system, but Sean Kenney, through the work at the Bloomberg, has looking at the use of AI to do pre-zoning and model simulation, giving people development potentials on their property as from a customer service perspective. So rather than always having to come into the City of Hamilton and say, what can I do with this piece of property? They would be able to do it on their own desktop, being able to look at the zoning. If they assemble parcels of land, what would it look like? Or alternatively, doing a quick and dirty zoning review so that they would then know, well, do I need minor variances or how do I have to tweak my building design so that I can go straight to either a building permit or site plan and expedite the process? Sean has been leading that team. I don't know, Sean, if you have any additional commentary you want to provide. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was one of the people who, there's other ones in the room here, we participated in the mayor's Bloomberg Harvard Innovation Project, and we came up with 8 what we call portfolio of initiatives, and one of them that came out strong was the use of artificial intelligence. So we actually did what we call an E-plan review, which is actually using AI. We did single family homes that a proponent can actually submit their single family home plan. It will look at the zoning and let the people know whether or not it complied with zoning. But it actually, if they didn't comply with zoning, it actually would tell them where the error was and how they could go about fixing it. And it also did a preliminary review of some of the OBC requirements and would look for different information that would be missing from the plan. So the idea is that using that as an AI tool is that the first submission that goes through, you've heard that like sometimes we get plans in that are missing information, so sort of the garbage in, garbage out. It would allow the applicant to make corrections to that plan before they even submit it to us. We've also looked, we heard loud and clear, and Councillor Wilson, I think it was Councillor Wilson, talked on it a little bit, which was what areas of the city, what we looked at were green, like they have services available, the zoning is in place, and you can to like get people to come to the city to build. So there is AI that is available. We are still looking at that aspect of it as well, to basically a portal that either a developer could use who's looking to move their business into Hamilton, or a resident that's looking to do something from as simple as an ADU, or they are looking at, can this site be changed? Can I build something else? And there's amazing tools out there. So we are looking at it. There is a lot of really good, cool things that could come out of this.
Thanks, Sean. But you're going to introduce yourself as the interim Anita. Is that could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so Sean Kenney, sorry, Manager of Site Planning. Yeah, I am here on behalf of Anita Faybeck, who is absent today.
Thank you, Sean. Drina, I saw you had an update, another follow-on question.
Just a quick, that's really exciting news to share. Will there be a presentation at some point to the community and the business sector?
Yes, so there is, the plan is to take the Bloomberg Innovation Track Initiative to General Issues Committee. And once that goes through General Issues Committee, we will then report back to this through this committee.
That was an excellent question because I was going to ask that question as well. Brenda, please. See, we were all thinking along the same lines. Okay, excellent. Before I go to second time speakers, I'm going to put myself on the list. So Councillor Wilson, if you could take the chair.
Go ahead, thank you.
So I have the privilege of sitting on other committees. And one other committee is the Audit, Finance, and Administration. And recently we had a significant amount of development charges, contestations? No, whatever, like, they're essentially contesting development charges, which actually prompted a lot of discussion around the customer service, around how do we calculate customer development charges and all of that stuff. So I'd like to understand perhaps from you, Jen, or from Ainsley. And yeah, so like if we can actually get a little bit of an update on development charges and what does that customer service look like there?
Sure, I can start, and then our friends from finance can jump in as well. So through the chair, out of that audit, finance, and administration meeting, there, Councillor Maureen Wilson had a motion to look at some of that customer service perspective. We did get several staff from the Planning and Economic Development section as well as finance together to identify what are some of the touch points where we already communicating about development charges to our customers. There were some very quick wins that have already been implemented as a result of those discussions. There is actually a report coming back March 20th to the Audit and Finance Committee. So in respect for that committee, I won't go into too many details about and I don't know too many of the details about the outcomes of those. But once that goes to the committee, we're happy to bring that back here and have more detailed discussion about what those improvements are, both immediate and long-term. In terms of customer service. Oh, and I was supposed to plug that, sorry, I missed that one. That there, that we do at any point in the process for customers, there is an email. So just for the public record here, dcrequests@hamilton.ca. Any customer is allowed to reach out during their process and reach out to our finance staff who will help them through any preliminary calculations on development charges. So I was definitely supposed to say that on the record.
Thank you. And then through the chair, my other question, as we are here sitting on this Open for Business subcommittee, I think that when we speak about customer service, it's we have to lean very heavily on our advisors to tell us the voice of the customer. But internally here, we do a significant amount of sort of that process. So I wonder if you could just give us a little more information on how do we reevaluate or provide that our own feedback loop as to how we actually do evaluate ourselves and how do we map that against customers or how the expectations of customers. So I wonder if you can just touch on that a little bit.
Yep, I'm happy to start and have anyone else jump in. But we have a number of formal and informal processes. So like we've talked about today in terms of formal, we have been participating in formal innovation and continuous improvement programs. So through Bloomberg Harvard, we had that opportunity to look at the entire development approvals process. That was an exciting project in the sense that it really allowed us to engage. There was over 60 plus customers that we engaged in that work to help us not only tell us opportunities for improvement in the process, but help generate solutions and design new solutions as well. So there's formal programs like that. There's also key performance indicators reviews. So we have our leadership teams who do measure from the staff level at the most granular level up, and they talk about measurement as part of their leadership team discussions and how to improve. And there's also key positions across the PED as well, our Planning and Economic Development, who are dedicated to data reporting and talking about how we use that to make decisions and improve our processes. I'm going to ask Steve if he has anything else to add from a department perspective, but both informal and informal ways that we're doing continuous improvement every day.
The only thing I would add to you, Madam Chairman, is that it's a corporate priority. And the city manager has sort of made it one of her #1 priorities, and having that conversation amongst the general managers and the directors, and then respectively amongst the teams, and driving that customer service message across the organization. And it's almost a daily basis that we're having conversations around how to improve the customer service. I can tell you that in planning several years ago, we actually even hired mystery shoppers to come in and pretend that you were somebody looking to work your way, making inquiries and telling us how can we improve our processes and the design of the workspace. And that's actually what the recommendations were. Information that people were seeking, whether we're providing that service in person or virtually. And for those people coming into City Hall, what did they need in terms of just the way that the space was being allocated? Just this week, we resumed 100% all the operations in the first floor open for business, small business enterprise centers. So now we have planning, licensing, as well as economic development staff down there. So, I mean, that's part of that customer service improvement and moving that team back into focusing on those customer service initiatives. So I think as we move forward, we know that our customer needs are changing. So we need to respond to those needs. But we also have a very diverse range of customers. I mean, we still see people coming in to pay property taxes with cash, and then there's other people who never step foot into City Hall. So we have to make sure that both our brick and mortar, as well as our virtual, storefront, meets everyone's needs. And we're, looking at our processes. And I think this year there'll be a lot more sort of re-engineering some of those processes to respond to our customer needs and shaping what those customer needs are, and ensuring that we're open for business, especially given the economic circumstances we're in. We need to look for those opportunities to streamline the processes and make sure that when people are coming in, we make our expectations very clear, but we're also listening to our customers where we can do better, because I think we're always prepared to do better, whatever that looks like. Some of it is incremental change, and some of it may be more significant changes from a customer service lens. But I can say it's almost job #1, from Marnie's, the city manager's perspective, is the discussion around customer service. Thank you.
My last question then through you, Chair, is how often do we do these types of reviews? Because we have a new council, we have a new Open for Business subcommittee, we have new faces around this table. We don't have that level of knowledge into what's currently happening.
I think part of it is ongoing and continuous, depending on the different scale. We're not into the larger operational reviews, from cradle to grave. We did have to do a lot of those operational reviews in response to changing provincial legislation. Bill 109 was a major restructuring and a review of our processes, so we adjusted it. I can tell you that those elements that weren't directly affected by Bill 109 we're now revisiting. So growth management staff, for example, the subdivision agreement, although it may seem to be a very simple thing, we've been hearing from our customers that it doesn't work, the current form of the subdivision agreement. So I've asked the growth management staff to work with the development industry and other key stakeholders to revisit that part of the process and to report back on changes and a new subdivision agreement in much the same way we've done the zoning. We look, as Sean Kenny was indicating in some of the Bloomberg work, looked at a lot. Site plan was a primary area of focus, and how do we improve that site plan experience for the customers? Rob Lally and his team are ongoing continuous improvement and building code improvements in terms of inspections. And I think a lot of what we're seeing in this year is we're focusing on our digital response. How do we build back better in terms of meeting our customer needs, whether that's the direct customer or those, like I've indicated, ideally we want to have that subscriber service so people know when a development application is happening in their neighborhood, they can subscribe for that and not having to come into City Hall on a regular basis to be looking for the information. We're trying to push that information out to the greatest of our ability and be open and transparent in the processes. And I know just last year, I believe NorDev did a review of some of all the CIP programs and reported back. So it is this ongoing, continuous culture of innovation and customer service where we're looking at our processes, reporting to committee and council with suggested changes or developing new programs or stop doing things. A lot of times staff have been doing the same thing for 25 years. They're following policies and procedures. They are correct in what they are doing. But if that's no longer the right way to do things, we're going to say, okay, now's the time to have a conversation about what should we be doing and stop doing old ways and adopting new ways to respond to the needs of our customers. So the short answer is it's ongoing and it's perpetual.
Thank you. And I think we'll have further conversations about that when I get to the motions part. this conversation. But on to second time speakers, Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I thank you for all the information and the responses. I think one of the things I'm still struggling with within the framework I tried to set out at the outset of this meeting is trying to understand the variables that are within, that may or may not be unique to Hamilton in affecting some of those measured outcomes. So yes, we know construction costs have gone up. By how much? We're hearing 30%. It would be nice for us to have those kind of numbers. Yes, we understand that interest rates are going up and they're affecting the capacity and willingness and the affordability to build. But when I'm looking at, say, commercial vacancies, and I'm looking at only 6 municipalities were able to meet their provincially established target, I'm still not able to discern what are the variables at play locally that are affecting our outcomes. And if we are able to discern those variables, then that are local in nature, where we don't favorably compare, then those should be, in my opinion, an opportunity for us to lean in and say, we can improve because it is in our jurisdiction to do so in this area, and or in order to improve in this area and be competitive, say, with the city of Mississauga, who has it looks like on paper achieved better. What are the variables within our means? So just using one example, if we find out by looking at the controllable variables that it just so happens that there's more commercial activity because there's more, say, a demographic of this kind, there's more of a demographic of this kind because they have greater access to transit, affordable housing, urban amenities. Like, I'd like to be able to understand what are the variables that are within our midst to control. If it's not interest rates, fine. If it's not the cost of construction, fine. It may be the cost of working through the permit process. That's what I'm struggling with. What is it locally within our means to measure on how we measure up compared to other municipalities, and therefore, where do we have to lean into in terms of process improvement or otherwise? Is there anybody who can hazard a hypothetical response on that? If that's clear. If it's not, I'll try again. Is that clear?
Not sure. Nobody wants to put their hand up.
What is within our means to affect positively and where we're not measuring up?
We may, through you, Madam Chairman, it may require a bit more time to come up with a more fulsome answer, but the councillor started to allude along one of the costs is those carrying costs. So from the time of site acquisition until they're able to complete the project and sell those units or rent those units out, whether they're commercial or residential. And it's that carrying cost of the land is directly related to the length of the approvals process. So whether it's having to go through a planning process, building permit process, those two key processes those are things that are clearly within we have some degree of control in terms of that, how long it takes to go from first time they step foot into City Hall until the issuance of a building permit and they commence construction. And then how quickly that construction occurs. We do have some degree of control over that. There is a part of that benchmarking study does look at fees. Is it building permit fees, community benefit charges, development charges, and application fees? Our fees, are we at the high end of the spectrum or are we at the low end of the spectrum? And is that fee really reflecting the level of service that people are achieving? So we do have a degree of control over that piece of the equation. And then I think the other part, though, that you and I agree what you're alluding to, is the pre-market conditions. So if you're looking at, why wasn't there a grocery store in the downtown? Was there not enough people for years to support a grocery store in the downtown? As a result of all of the residential development that has occurred in the downtown, we now have 2.5, maybe 3 grocery stores in the downtown. Nations, there's the one off of George Street, and there's the one on James Street. We didn't have those for years. Although the city actually even had at one time an incentive program trying to attract a grocery store to the downtown. But that grocery store was directly related to the population. So are we ensuring, is there was necessary market conditions there to support whether it's the residential development in terms of the real estate values or in terms of the commercial development? Do we have the demand for that level of service, which is directly related to the vision for that portion of the city in terms of creating the critical mass to support those businesses? Those are probably the one element I would think that we have the most control on. I don't know. Norm, sorry, I'm looking at Director Sheehan if he has any additional thoughts.
I don't think I have much else to add to that, Steve. I was going to talk about the fees, the charges and whatnot, our competitive position. That's something we can control, especially in the environment that we're in now with the tariffs and whatnot. Everyone's looking at, where can we invest? Where should we invest? Why should we invest? And, when we have increased interest rates and then, what can we do on the local side? The fees would be one part of that. I'm not suggesting that we do that, but I'm just saying that is one of those elements that we do have some control over.
I would point out, there are decisions that council have made that have directly affected the cost of construction. So for example, by eliminating parking within the downtown and the LRT for residential development, that would be, translating into an $80,000 to $100,000 per unit savings to the developer by not having to build up structured parking. So that was a deliberate policy decision of council to be a transit walkable community, which eliminated the requirement for parking, which is almost an indirect subsidy to the development community so that the market will then dictate how much parking is being provided, as opposed to a standard imposed by the city of Hamilton that in some cases resulted in an oversupply of parking in the development that isn't required based on that development, or the market condition isn't there to support that area. In other areas of the city, though, we've made it important through our parking authority to ensure that we have the parking, the off-street parking is there to support the BIA. So, the work of the transportation parking section to make sure that we're aligning where we're providing parking to meet that sort of the need of the business as we speak today. And in other areas of the city, the vision is we eliminate the requirement for parking and that becomes a saving. So that is probably one of the most significant decisions of council in terms of providing an incentive to the development industry. And we're starting to see, the industry is they appreciate council's update to the zoning bylaw around parking. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. I think I'll have to give this further thought because I do think there is value in having an enumeration of those things that are within our midst, within the midst of a municipal lever in which we need to pull, where we're not measuring up and where we have to. And I think those have to be identifiable. And I would say the same for, I don't mean to be dismissive through the chair, customer service is great, but to what end? Are we being more customer service friendly in order so we can be more cost effective with our neighboring municipalities? Are we being more customer friendly in order we can be more efficient and competitive? Because I guess that is to what end, right? So I'll leave that. My final question is on slide 12, I believe there was a review of businesses, startups, et cetera. Are we able to by all the other data that you've provided, able to help us understand that better in terms of what type of businesses and where? Through the chair.
I think that's a Kristen question.
Through your chair, Kristen Hugenmoss from the Hamilton Business Center. Absolutely. So per our agreement with the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, we actually break our industries down. So by sector, I can tell you exactly who they are. Those metrics as well have significantly increased as we roll into our year end, which is March 31st. So exponentially, those numbers are doubled in terms of what's happened. And we are ahead of pace provincially on the small business portfolio numbers that you see before you.
Thank you. So if we have, through the chair, a protracted trade dispute with our neighbor, are we able to, do we track business loss and type of business? And do we do exit interviews to that end?
Through your chair, yes. So that is something on an annual basis we do. So we do a formal survey. We do that electronically and through the customer service experience through one-to-one interviews. Through our programs, we do exit interviews, and we do have a tracking mechanism through our department on the broader basis at commercial districts, where we do track businesses started and those in terms of the loss as well in Hamilton.
That's awesome. So pardon my ignorance, where would I see that feedback?
Yes, so through your chair, that information is available through the Hamilton Business Center website, and we will have forthcoming information at a committee meeting for GIC in the months ahead as our annual update as well. Judy, is there any additional on the commercial districts?
Just that in the summer, we hire students and we do employment survey that GIS we work with, and also we do a commercial vacancy survey with each of our BIAs that will report back the vacancies in their BIA.
So thank you, Chair. Just to wrap this up so I understand, you amass this activity, including any exits, and you do for lack of a better word, like an exit interview to understand perhaps some of the factors that have gone into that gain or loss. Just so I understand, in your reporting, do you put that together and share that with council? Because otherwise I've missed it.
Through your chair, that is a direction through our ministry partners and is available. And yes, that is correct. We will share that with council through our update this year if that's the interest of this committee. Absolutely.
So that update though goes to GIC. It doesn't come to this committee though, right?
Right. Goes to GIC, and then in our updates that we often come here for, we do include that information as well in our metrics.
Also not the same as when Norm does his Economic Development Action Plan update. So two separate activities. There's the EDAC update, and then there is the small business HBC update and general case of.
Correct.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Councillor?
Just when might that update that overview be coming on that activity? Thank you.
Yes, so this year it'll be in June, following our year end, which is ministry, March 31st. So allowing us to prepare the audit, have the KPIs, and get that information together, report back in June.
Okay, thank you. That's awesome. Would we need specific direction in order to take that report from that standing committee and share it with this committee, or just ensure it doesn't get lost?
Clerks?
In what way? Sorry.
No, in what? In what?
In what way?
When the report is delivered to the GIC, just to ensure that all members of this subcommittee, but particularly those community advisors who don't sit on that also will be in receipt of it. And if they feel the need to speak to it at this committee, I would like that opportunity to be offered.
So sharing the agenda with the committee when the GIC is published, absolutely. I just, like, you know, having a report of two committees is not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
So I almost think that having the members go to the GIC would be a cleaner process.
Okay.
Because we can't receive the report again here, right? It's already dealt with at GIC, that's why.
Or could it, at GIC, could we direct it here as an information after the GIC?
Madam Chairman, maybe what I can suggest is, I understand the dilemma like clerks is that we as staff can undertake to ensure that all the stakeholders and members of this committee are advised once our report is published and it's available, and through whether it's through an email or through an email, and Kristen is, sorry, ECDEVS, and that we will know, and with the link to the report GIC agenda, that way that they will be available. They will be made available to the members who are interested in pursuing it further, and staff will undertake to note that as part of when the report goes live on the Wednesday before the GIC. That would probably be the easiest way to deal with it, other than clerks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, staff.
Okay. Thank you very much. On for a second time, Nadine from the Barton BIA, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to back to Councillor Wilson's comment, I think what I am hearing and what I understand the question to be is around what would have an investor select another city to make their investment over ours. And from the feedback that we are getting in the BIAs from some of the businesses, if I can be candid, it comes around confidence and confidence around being able to navigate through the processes as they currently exist. The general sort of anecdotal feedback is that processes are long and complicated. They're not very well understood, and that they take a long time. And as a small business owner who may not have the money to invest in a development of their property to begin with, and I hate to go back to the incentives, but if it truly is an incentive and the process, that there's some amount of confidence of being able to go through those processes and be supported, then they may be more likely to access the incentives and actually put in the applications and go through the development. But without that level of confidence, right now the word is being spread around that it's not worth it. It's not worth it to go through the process. It's not worth it for the headache. It's not worth it to have your funds tied up for some amount of time. In some cases, the reports we're getting back is years that funds are tied up. So I think if we have the ability to go through the processes and determine what points can be supported in a better way, can be made more efficient, can be communicated better to increase the level of confidence, I think that may have a great impact.
Excellent points, Nadine. And I think that we should definitely speak about these in motions, which is next. So if there's no others, Drina, please. Yep.
As we're talking about exit interviews, the quick question is around the customer evaluation. Is that built into the development application process now?
Through the chair, not in a formal way that I'm aware of. I'll let Sean comment if he's aware in a formal capacity if we ask people, probably anecdotally and through the feedback received through the individuals working on the file, they probably receive it, but not in a formal way.
Yeah, so just wanted to confirm, we don't really do that formally right now. It's no reason that we could not look at doing that as part of our process review. Anecdotally, we do know that, as most processes, some people appreciate the short time frames that we actually have compared to other municipalities when it comes, I can only speak to site plans. Others, they look at anything that the city does as getting in the way. So, we do recognize that we do have to look at our processes to try to simplify them. Based on my 25 years experience, we're never going to make 100% of people satisfied. Our goal should be to try to. We are trying to do that this year by looking at the site plan process and trying to simplify it. And part of that will be working with those individuals involved and listening to them. That's what we learned through the Bloomberg Harvard program, and the recommendation changes that we came up or stuff that we heard loud and clear that we could do better. And it was done, we had open and frank discussions with them. So at the Harvard level, we have done it. Specifically on every application, no, but it's something that we can definitely do.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, we do have to receive the presentation. Oh, I think, Maureen, would you be open to receiving this presentation? I would also be open to receiving said presentation. You mean, but isn't this the 7.1? We just have to receive the presentation and then, and the report, that is correct. So mover and seconder for the report, Councillor Maureen Wilson, Councillor Tammy Huang. Any discussion on said report? I think we had a really good fulsome discussion already. So how about we receive both the presentation and the report all at once? Councillor Maureen Wilson, would you like to receive them? Councillor Maureen Wilson, followed by Councillor Tammy Huang, and show of hands. I think that carries. Okay, we are now moving on to 9.1, which is motions. And fresh off of the great conversation that we've had, motions are mapping customer journey for residents and business owners seeking construction approvals. Councillor Wilson, will you take the chair, please?
Certainly.
Thank you. So I'm introducing my motion. I'm just telling you now. So I'll read it into record. It is mapping the customer journey for residents and business owners seeking construction approvals, whereas residents, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, including developers and other entities that wish to do business within the city must complete applications with the City of Hamilton to complete new construction, renovations, additions, alterations, and/or any type of construction on their residence or business location. Whereas the City of Hamilton has a fulsome back office process, often coordinated between staff across multiple sections and divisions, that are used to moving applications through to approval in a timely manner. Whereas the steps that a customer must take within the application process may differ depending on the type of work that they are completing on their residence or business location and may be unclear to the applicant. And whereas feedback from applicants has been received that the customer service experience, including communication with customers, may vary across the application process. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to report back to the next May 29, 2025 meeting for Open for Business Subcommittee with an educational presentation outlining the current customer journey for a resident and or business owner seeking approval for a permit for alteration, renovation, construction on their home, business, and that this presentation outlines the procedures, subsequent customer touch points that they would interact with at the city, and feedback from recent applications. And B, that staff be directed to report back to the Open for Business Subcommittee by Q3 2025 with a report outlining any gaps within the customer journey, including feedback from users in the process, and also identifying innovative solutions and action plans, including required resources, on how to provide a best-in-class customer experience in line with the City of Hamilton's corporate pillar of providing sensational service. So, Chair, just to speak to this, we have heard, amazingly, that we do a great job internally. We are still fielding feedback externally from customers that feel like they might feel lost in the process. And hearing what Sean and Jen have been working on with the Bloomberg stuff, I think that this is a real opportunity to bring that to the forefront, to really talk about what does this look like from a customer perspective. Because just as Nadine had also told us, businesses still feel like there is opacity when it comes to this process. So if we can turn our attention to have our teams look at it from placing themselves in the customer's shoes and really identifying how does this work from a customer perspective. And I think too, when we heard it from the DC hearings and all of that stuff, customers definitively told us that they did not hear information at a timely manner that could help them with feeling more confident in our processes and our procedures. And so I think that the reason for this motion is also timely because just as GM Robichaud said, CM Clucky is interested in looking at it from a customer service perspective as well. So I think that this is just formalizing some of that work and bringing it to the forefront and putting it in a public forum that we can all have these discussions to talk about. So any other one? That's it. So
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on the motion or requirements for clarification on the action being sought? Yes, please.
I would, through the chair, thank you. Thank you for all the hard work that everybody does in this committee. Thank you for the staff presentations. I'm always impressed. I think you don't shout out your positives enough. I think there's a lot of, when I first came to this committee, I was like, wow, they do a lot of great things here. This is really cool. But I do put on my marketing hat and say within this motion that not only we create an understanding and within this committee of how the journey is, but rather we make sure that there's a plan to get it out to educate people. And I obviously offer the chambers as your partners in that, whether we have, sessions or Zoom calls or whatever, because the more you educate them, the less, and you could really make it quite simple. Did you know that you can speed up your permit process if you do these top 5 things? Did you know that, it could be real simple marketing communication things that you could use to not only help yourselves, but help the message getting out. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, it's been duly moved and seconded. Oh, fancy.
Oh, fancy.
Oh.
Oh.
It
Seems odd because it's just the two of us.
Thank you. I'm guessing.
Wow.
Carries 2-0. Thank you, Councillor Wang, for your thoughtful motion. Look forward to the report back and hand the chair back to you.
Thank you. So along the lines of doing business in this particular meeting, Nadine had brought up a really great point too, was looking at it from a customer perspective from the incentive side. So as per us doing business, I would like to pass the chair over to Councillor Wilson because I like to put forward another motion as it relates to the conversation we've been having today. Elsie Salamoni, can you put that up on the screen for everyone? So reading this into record, there are no sort of whereas statements, but I think we can use the whereas statements of things that we discussed in today's conversation, but that therefore be resolved would be very similar to the last motion, actually. That staff be directed to report back to a future Open for Business subcommittee with presentation outlining the current customer journey for small business owner navigating the municipal incentives grant and loan programs. That this presentation outlines the procedures, subsequent customer touch points, and how they would interact with the city with feedback from recent applications, and B, that staff be directed to report back to a future Open for Business subcommittee with a report outlining any gaps within the customer journey, including feedback from local business improvement areas, small business owners navigating the process, and other vendors/organizations participating in the incentive programs, and identifying innovative solutions and action plans, including required resources on how to provide a best-in-class customer experience in line with the City of Hamilton's corporate pillar of providing sensational service. Sounds very similar, right? The idea here is really, Chair, just to do a bit of a fulsome analysis from a customer perspective. Again, we have excellent back of house processes and procedures, and a lot of that stuff does require waiting on the customer side. But what we don't seem to see is what are the customer touch points? How do we connect with the customer? How does the customer feel as they are going through this process? And we want to ensure that they come back and they keep coming back and they tell their friends for them to invest more and leverage the use of our incentives and continue to do the things that the type of investment that is required here. So let's move by myself, and hopefully Councillor Maureen Wilson will second.
Absolutely.
Yes, and so that is the second motion as per today's business. Sorry, yeah.
For the chair, Councillor, is this going on as a notice or a motion, or, because if so, we would have to waive the rules and then put it on as a motion?
But we had these discussions today, exactly today.
In my understanding, it was supposed to go on the report, which you were going to make a motion on the report that we received, and it's fine, but we can just put it on as a notice, waive the rules. You'll have to both vote yes, and then yes. And then we can go on with the motion, vote on the motion. Yes. If that's okay.
Chair, what do you think?
I don't know, this might be a transactional moment.
Just give me a moment, through the chair, just give me a moment to put the waiving of the rules up on the screen to vote.
This is a very efficient committee.
Yeah, I haven't noticed.
What's 2/3 of 2 people?
Yeah.
Okay, this is waiving the rules, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm too, we still the other part.
Trying to figure out our role.
Sorry, the waiving of the rules, the permission is granted. Please proceed with the motion as we've already read it into the record so that we can have a vote.
Or do we want to talk about it at all?
Yes, if there's any questions.
Are there any questions or comments or any need for clarification on the design? Oh, thank you. My apologies. Barton BIA, Nadine.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that the BIAs, we're 100% in support of these incentive programs. We love them. We're grateful that they exist. We want to be able to encourage applications because we have the confidence as BIAs that we're going to be able to support the businesses and property owners through the process. That is the reason for making this request.
Clearly understood. Thank you for that clarification. Any further comment or question? Seeing none, we'll have a vote on
Norm, did you want to say something?
If I may, I just said we're very open to the feedback and the continuous improvement because we want to make this a better program.
For sure. Yep, that was clear too. Thank you, Norm.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have a vote on the motion. It's been duly moved. The vote is up. Thank you. That carries 2-0. Thank you. I'll back over to you, Chair.
As we are talking about notices of motion, are there any notices of motion? Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you. This has to be further formatted, but it is just a notice. The staff be requested to identify those factors and features within a municipal jurisdiction that affect the cost and time of opening a business and how these outputs compare with neighboring municipalities in the GTHA. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other notices of motion? Seeing none? And that there are no other items on LC Salamone. Hey, Sal.
Sorry?
There used to be an item on here called other business. So there's no more item.
Correct, so the new procedural bylaw, that's been. Through the chair, through the new procedural bylaw, that item has been removed.
Okay. Is there a way for advisors to bring up any other things? Like, is there any way for us to ask the advisors if there's any other topics that they might want this committee to explore?
You could, I mean, you have that right as chair to open that up under nothing.
Under nothing. All right, okay. In my authority of opening up the discussion under nothing. Are there any topics or questions, concerns from advisors that we may want to explore for a future meeting? Our committee members, myself, Councillor Wilson, and Councillor Cassar are all open to taking emails, but I just thought that this might be the opportunity if there are anything from, or you guys think about it. The next one is going to be May 29th. And we'll have lots of conversations with Jen and, Sean and Rob and, team. So seeing as there are no other business, thank you all. This meeting is adjourned. So thank you staff for being here and thank you LCs for running the ship. And thank you advisors for being here. Have a great day.
Thank you.